The storm hit the small coastal town just after midnight, rain hammering against empty streets like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. William Carter gripped the steering wheel tighter as his headlights carved through sheets of water. The windshield wipers working frantically but losing the battle. He was exhausted from a night shift at the hospital, his hands still smelling faintly of machine oil and antiseptic. All he wanted was to get home to Leia to check on his 7-year-old daughter, sleeping safely in her room. But then he saw them, a woman huddled beneath the broken awning of an abandoned gas station, her white blouse strewn with mud, her arms wrapped protectively around a small bundle. William's foot found the brake instinctively. The woman's eyes were hollow, red-rimmed, staring at nothing. And then the baby in her arms turned its head, and in a voice so soft William almost missed it over the rain, whispered 2 words that made his heart stop. "Daddy, Will." They had never met before. William was certain of that. He would have remembered those desperate eyes, that rain-soaked desperation. Yet somehow, impossibly, this tiny child knew his name. William Carter had stopped believing in miracles 6 years ago, the night they pulled the sheet over his wife's face in the operating room. He had been a mechanical engineer then, working on medical research equipment, full of hope and plans. Now he was 36, a single father working as a hospital maintenance technician, fixing the same machines he once designed. That IT was quieter work, humbler, but it kept him close to Leia and far from the memories that still woke him some nights. Gasping, his daughter was his entire world now. 7 years old, with her mother's curious eyes and endless questions about how things worked. She had his patience, his careful hands. On weekends, they built model airplanes together in their small garage workshop, and those were the only hours William felt something close to peace. The woman on his passenger seat was shivering despite the car's heater running full blast. Dr. Callista Monroe, that was the name on the medical license he had glimpsed falling from her bag. 32 years old, according to the date, though she looked older now, worn down by something more than just the storm. She was a pediatrician, or had been. The license was expired. There were other papers, too, crumpled and water-stained. But William did not pry. Not yet. The child in her arms was maybe 2 years old, fever-flushed and whimpering. Noah, she called him. The boy who had somehow known William's name. Leia would be full of questions in the morning. His daughter missed having a mother. Though she barely remembered the woman who had died when she was just a baby, William tried to be enough, tried to fill both roles. But some nights, he heard Leia talking to her stuffed animals, practicing conversations with an imaginary mom. It broke something in him every time. The town of Windermere hugged the Washington coast like a secret. Population 30,000, mostly fishermen and retirees. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where strangers were noticed. William lived on the quiet end of Maple Street, a small 2-bedroom house with peeling blue paint and a garden his wife had planted that he could never quite bring himself to maintain properly. The roses still bloomed, though wild and untended. Every spring, he carried Noah inside first, the boy's small body burning with fever against his chest. Callista followed, moving like someone who had learned not to expect kindness, her eyes scanning for exits, for dangers. William showed her to the guest room, the one that had been his home office before. Leia needed more space for her growing collection of books and science kits. He found clean towels, spare clothes that had belonged to his wife, still folded in boxes he had never unpacked. When he returned, Callista was standing by the window, rain streaming down the glass, her hand pressed against the cold surface as if she could push through it and disappear. "The bathroom's down the hall," William said quietly. "There's soup in the kitchen when you're ready. I'll check on the boy." She turned to face him then, and he saw something flicker in her expression. Gratitude, maybe, or fear. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. Her voice was Horsero-educated, the kind that belonged in hospital corridors giving careful diagnosis. "Because it's raining," William said simply, "and because nobody should be out in this." He paused at the door. "We'll talk in the morning," but sleep did not come easily that night. William stood in Leia's doorway, watching his daughter's peaceful breathing, then found himself drawn back to the guest room. listening to the soft sounds of Callista soothing her crying child. Her voice was gentle, musical, almost singing something that might have been a lullaby, and beneath it, barely audible, he heard her whisper, "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I couldn't save them." Morning came gray and cold, the storm having passed, but leaving everything soaked and heavy. Leia discovered their guests immediately. Of course, her excited voice carrying through the house as she peppered Callista with questions. William made breakfast, scrambling eggs and toasting bread, listening to his daughter's chatter fill the kitchen. It was the most noise the house had held in months. "That's a really cool watch, Dad," Leia said, pointing to the vintage timepiece on William's wrist. "You never told me where you got it." William's hand went instinctively to the leather band. "It belonged to a friend," he said carefully. "Someone from the hospital." Callista's head snapped up, her eyes locking onto the watch. William saw color drain from her face. "Where?" She started, then stopped, her voice catching. "Where did you get that?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to explore. William sat down his coffee cup slowly to "Tea was given to me by a doctor about 5 years ago. He said he owed me an apology for something, though he never explained what." "Ethan," Callista whispered. The name came out like a curse. His name was Ethan Monroe. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. William stared at this woman, this stranger with the haunted eyes and the child who knew his name, and felt the ground shift beneath him. "Monroe," he repeated. You were married to him." Was Callista, confirmed, her voice flat, now defensive, "before he destroyed my life." She glanced at Leia, seemed to weigh her words before he took everything. William's mind was racing, connecting dots he had tried for years not to see. Ethan Monroe, the young surgeon who had stood in the hospital parking lot one night, awkward and nervous, pressing an expensive watch into William's hands. "I'm sorry," he had said, "for your loss. I should have done better." William had never understood it, never asked for details. The watch had felt like blood money, but he had kept it anyway, worn it every day as a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. "You need to leave," William said quietly, but his voice carried steel beneath the calm. Leia looked up, confused, frightened by the change in her father's tone. Callista stood, gathering Noah into her arms. But the boy was burning up, his small face flushed red, his breathing shallow. "Please," she said, and there was no pride left in her voice now. "Just let me get him stable. Then we'll go. I promise." But Noah's fever spiked before she could finish the sentence. His little body convulsed once, twice, and Callista was moving with practiced precision, laying him on the floor, checking his airway. Her doctor's training taking over even as her hand shook. "Call 911, she ordered, and William was already moving, the anger forgotten in the face of a child's crisis. The ambulance came screaming up Maple Street 12 minutes later, but it felt like hours. William held Leia back as the paramedics worked, his daughter crying, asking if the baby was going to die like Mommy did. And William watched Callista fight for her son with everything she had. Her voice steady even as tears streamed down her face, giving instructions, monitoring vitals, being the doctor she had been trained to be, even though the world had taken that title from her. In the emergency room waiting area, after Noah had been stabilized and admitted for observation, Callista told William everything. Her voice was hollow, drained, but the story poured out like poison finally being expelled from a wound. She had been one of the best pediatric surgeons on the East Coast. Brilliant and dedicated, the kind of doctor who stayed late and came in early, who remembered every patient's name and birthday. Ethan Monroe had been her husband, charming and ambitious, the hospital director's son, groomed for leadership. They had seemed perfect together, the power couple of Memorial General. Then came the surgery that changed everything. An emergency procedure. A woman bleeding out from complications. Ethan leading the operation. Callista had been assisting, watching in growing horror as her husband made mistake after mistake, his hands clumsy with exhaustion or incompetence or both. She had tried to intervene to suggest corrections, but Ethan had snapped at her, his ego more important than the patient's life. The woman had died on the table, William's wife, the mother of his child, the woman whose last breath he had held in a sterile room, while a young surgeon stammered apologies outside. They made me sign the incident report. Callista continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Said I had made critical errors. Ethan's father threatened to destroy me to make sure I never practiced again. My own husband told me to take the blame or face legal consequences. I was pregnant with Noah. I was terrified, so I signed. The career destruction had been systematic and thorough. License suspended pending investigation. Criminal charges threatened. Her name dragged through medical boards and ethics committees. And through it all, Ethan had played the grieving colleague. The husband standing by his troubled wife, even as he filed for divorce, and took everything, the hospital settlement, their house, their savings. He had left her with nothing but shame and a newborn son. I ran, Callista said simply, took Noah and ran because Ethan was never going to let me rebuild. He needed me broken to protect his own reputation. And the worst part, she laughed a broken sound. I never stopped being a doctor. I still see the world through that lens. I still want to save people, but I can't save myself. William sat in silence for a long time, watching through the window as nurses moved past. As the hospital machinery of life and death ground on indifferently, he thought about the watch on his wrist, about the man who had given it to him, about 6 years of misplaced anger and grief that had been aimed at the wrong person. Your wife, Callista whispered. I tried to save her. I tried so hard, but Ethan wouldn't listen, wouldn't let me take over. And when she died, her voice broke. I've carried her with me every day since. Every single day, outside the hospital, the rain had started again. Gentler now, washing the world clean. William drove Callista and Noah home in silence. But it was a different kind of quiet than before. Understanding, maybe, or the beginning of something that might one day become forgiveness. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm, tentative and careful. Callista and Noah stayed in the guest room. William told himself it was temporary, just until she got back on her feet, but neither of them mentioned leaving, and he did not ask. Leah loved having them there, loved teaching Noah his colors and letters, loved having Callista help with her homework, explaining biology and chemistry with the patience of someone who truly loved teaching. William found himself watching Callista when she did not know he was looking. The way she helped Leah build a model solar system for school. Her hands precise and confident. The way she sang Noah to sleep every night. Her voice carrying through the house like a blessing. The way she smiled, rare and genuine. When something small and good happened. A rainbow after rain, or Leah's laugh, or Noah's first successful attempt at stacking blocks. One evening, William came home from work to find Noah sitting in his workshop, tiny hands reaching for a wrench. No, buddy, Callista was saying gently, trying to steer him away, but William knelt down, placed a wrench in Noah's hands, and guided him through, pretending to tighten a bolt on an old bicycle wheel. There you go, William said softly. That's it. You're natural, Daddy will. The name slipped out without thinking, and for a moment, the room went still. Then Noah looked up, his face splitting into a huge grin, and repeated it like a prayer. Daddy will. Daddy will. Callista's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling too. And William realized this was the first time he had seen her truly happy since that storm-soaked night. He's never had a father, she said quietly. Ethan wanted nothing to do with him. Said a child would damage his reputation, his image as a grieving, wronged husband. William pulled Noah into his lap, let the boy play with his watch band, and met Callista's gaze over the child's head. I guess it's time someone taught him how to use tools properly, he said. Can't have him growing up not knowing how to fix things. Something shifted between them that night, some invisible wall crumbling. They started having dinner together as a family. All four of them around the small kitchen table, passing dishes and sharing stories about their days. Callista began helping William with repairs around the house. Her steady hands and medical precision perfect for delicate work. She taught Leah about the human body, about how healing happened, about the difference between curing and caring. And slowly, carefully, she began to teach William, too, helping him understand that his wife's death had not been inevitable, had not been anyone's fault, but the man who had been too proud to admit he was in over his head. "I forgive you," William told her one night after the children were asleep as they sat on the porch watching the rain. "For all of it. It was never yours to carry." Callista turned to him, rainlight reflecting in her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive myself," she whispered. "Then let me forgive you enough for both of us," William said. "Until you're ready." Leah loved having them there. Loved teaching Noah his colors and letters. Loved having Callista help with her homework, explaining biology and chemistry with the patience of someone who truly loved teaching. William found himself watching Callista when she did not know he was looking. The way she helped Leah build a model solar system for school. Her hands precise and confident. The way she sang Noah to sleep every night. Her voice carrying through the house like a blessing. The way she smiled, rare and genuine, when something small and good happened. A rainbow after rain, or Leah's laugh, or Noah's first successful attempt at stacking blocks. One evening, William came home from work to find Noah sitting in his workshop, tiny hands reaching for a wrench. "No, buddy," Callista was saying gently, trying to steer him away, but William knelt down, placed a wrench in Noah's hands, and guided him through, pretending to tighten a bolt on an old bicycle wheel. "There you go," William said softly. "That's it. You're natural, Daddy will." The name slipped out without thinking, and for a moment, the room went still. Then Noah looked up, his face splitting into a huge grin, and repeated it like a prayer. "Daddy will. Daddy will." Callista's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling too. And William realized this was the first time he had seen her truly happy since that storm-soaked night. "He's never had a father," she said quietly. "Ethan wanted nothing to do with him. Said a child would damage his reputation, his image as a grieving, wronged husband." William pulled Noah into his lap, let the boy play with his watch band, and met Callista's gaze over the child's head. "I guess it's time someone taught him how to use tools properly," he said. "Can't have him growing up not knowing how to fix things." Something shifted between them that night, some invisible wall crumbling. They started having dinner together as a family. All four of them around the small kitchen table, passing dishes and sharing stories about their days. Callista began helping William with repairs around the house. Her steady hands and medical precision perfect for delicate work. She taught Leah about the human body, about how healing happened, about the difference between curing and caring. And slowly, carefully, she began to teach William, too, helping him understand that his wife's death had not been inevitable, had not been anyone's fault, but the man who had been too proud to admit he was in over his head. "I forgive you," William told her one night after the children were asleep as they sat on the porch watching the rain. "For all of it. It was never yours to carry." Callista turned to him, rainlight reflecting in her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive myself," she whispered. "Then let me forgive you enough for both of us," William said. "Until you're ready." They were still just beginning to heal, still just learning to trust again. When Ethan Monroe appeared on the doorstep 3 months after that storm-soaked night, he looked exactly as William remembered, polished and confident in an expensive suit, his smile practiced and empty. Behind him stood a woman with a briefcase and the cold eyes of a lawyer. "Hello, Callista," Ethan said smoothly. "I've come for my son." The confrontation happened in William's living room. Leah and Noah safely upstairs with a neighbor William trusted. Ethan spoke in calm, measured tones about parental rights and custody arrangements, about how a child deserved stability, how Callista had kidnapped Noah, how he had been searching for months. The lawyer produced papers, official-looking documents with seals and signatures. "You abandoned him," Callista said, her voice shaking but holding steady. "You wanted nothing to do with him." "I was grieving," Ethan countered smoothly, "dealing with the trauma of what you put me through. But I've had time now, time to reflect on what's important. My son deserves his father." William watched this performance, this carefully constructed lie, and felt something cold and clear settle in his chest. He thought about his wife, about the watch he still wore, about the man who had looked him in the eye and apologized while covering up the truth. He thought about Callista crying herself to sleep, About Noah calling him daddy, well, with such pure trust. About the family that had formed in his broken-down house against all odds. "Get," Williams said quietly. Ethan turned to him as if noticing him for the first time. Recognition flickered across his face. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry you've been drawn into this, but this is a family matter. Callista has been filling your head with lies about me, about what happened with your wife. I tried to save her. You have to understand. I said, get out." William's voice was harder now, the steel beneath the surface finally showing. "You have 5 seconds before I call the police, and then I'm going to do something I should have done 6 years ago. I'm going to find out the truth." The lawyers started to object, but something in William's eyes made her reconsider. Ethan's polished mask slipped for just a moment, showing something ugly underneath. "You can't keep him from me forever," he said to Callista. "I have resources. I have connections. This isn't over." But it was about to be. William had spent 6 years maintaining hospital equipment. 6 years with access to systems and records. 6 years being invisible as maintenance staff always are. He knew people. The kind of people who remembered when doctors treated them like furniture. Who knew where bodies were buried, metaphorically and otherwise. The hospital kept backups of everything, including operating room recordings that were supposed to be automatically deleted after 5 years, but somehow never quite were if you knew where to look. It took William 3 weeks working late nights, calling in favors, piecing together fragments. But when he was done, he had all. Video footage of the surgery, showing Ethan's mistakes in excruciating detail. Audio recordings of the review board meeting where Ethan's father threatened staff members into compliance. Email chains about the cover-up, about the pressure put on Callista to sign false documents. Even the original settlement William had signed, the one that had included a non-disclosure agreement, he had been too grief-stricken to read carefully. He brought it all to a retired FBI agent who lived 2 streets over, a man whose pacemaker William had fixed multiple times over the years. The agent, still connected, still sharp, took one look at the evidence and made some calls. Federal medical fraud investigation, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. The charges piled up like snowdrifts. Ethan Monroe was arrested at his office on a Tuesday morning in front of colleagues and staff, his reputation crumbling in real time. The hospital director, Ethan's father, resigned that afternoon. The news cycle picked up the story local first, then regional, then national. The brilliant doctor who had blamed his wife for his own mistakes. The cover-up that had cost lives and destroyed an innocent woman's career. Callista watched it all unfold from William's living room. Noah playing with blocks at her feet, disbelief written across her face. "You did this," she said. "Not a question. A statement of wonder." "We did this," William corrected. "You survived. That's what made it possible." The state medical board began review proceedings within days. Character witnesses came forward. Former colleagues who had always doubted the official story. Nurses who had seen what really happened but had been too afraid to speak up. Callista's license was fully reinstated within 6 months. Her record expuned. Her reputation beginning the slow process of repair. 1 year after that storm-soaked night, William stood in front of a small crowd gathered for the grand opening of Carter and Monroe Workshop, a combination woodworking shop and small urgent care clinic taking up the renovated space of an old warehouse on Maple Street. The name was painted in gold letters above the door, visible from blocks away. Leah and Noah played tag between the sawhorses and medical carts, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Neighbors had come, hospital staff, people whose lives had been touched by either Callista's care or William's quiet kindness over the years. There was cake and coffee and the warm buzz of community celebration. Callista was in her element, white coat, crisp and new, talking with parents about vaccination schedules and sports injuries, being the doctor she had always been meant to be. William watched her shine, watched her hands move with confidence as she explained something to a worried mother, watched her smile reach her eyes in a way it never had those first terrible months. When the crowd began to thin as the sun started its slow descent toward the Pacific horizon, William found Callista standing alone in the doorway, looking out at the street where they had first brought her and Noah home. 1 year, she said softly. Feels like a lifetime or a beginning, William suggested. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it to reveal a simple silver ring with 3 small stones, 2 blue and 1 green, the birthstones of their children. I don't know why Noah called me Daddy Will that first night, William said, his voice steady despite the way his hands shook. Maybe he was confused. Maybe it was fever. Maybe it was something else. Some kind of fate or luck or divine intervention. But I know this. He took her hand, felt her fingers interlock with his. I want to be Daddy Will. Not just to him, but to all of us. I want to build a family from these broken pieces we've gathered. I want to fix things, heal things with you. Callista's eyes filled with tears. The good kind. The kind that meant release and joy instead of pain. You already have, she whispered. You saved me when I didn't think I deserved saving. Then let me keep saving you, William said. Every day. And let me let you save me too, because that's what families do. She said yes with a kiss, with her arms around his neck, with her whispered yes. 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 Against his lips. And Noah, who had wandered over to investigate, grabbed both their legs and announced proudly to anyone who would listen, Daddy Will, Mommy, my family. The final scene played out on the beach where William used to come alone. The place where he had scattered his first wife's ashes 6 years ago, where he had stood in the cold water and wondered if he would ever feel whole again. Now he stood in warm afternoon light, his daughter on his shoulders, watching Callista chase Noah through the shallow waves. Both of them squealing with delight as the Pacific foam caught their ankles. Dad, Leia asked, her voice thoughtful in that way she got when processing something big. Are you happy now? William thought about that question, about everything that had led to this moment. The grief and the anger, the storm and the stranger, the slow, painful process of learning to trust again, to love again, to believe that broken things could be made whole, even if they never looked quite the same as before. Yeah, sweetheart, he said, squeezing her hand. I really am. Callista looked back at them from the water's edge, the sunset painting her in shades of gold and amber. Noah balanced on her hip, both of them waving. William waved back, and in that gesture was everything he had learned about forgiveness, about second chances, about how sometimes the family you find is the one you were always meant to have. She told me something yesterday. Leia continued, still watching Callista and Noah play. She said that she used to think being a doctor meant having all the answers, but you taught her that healing is actually about asking the right questions. What did she mean? William smiled, lowering Leia to the sand so they could walk together toward the water. I think she meant that sometimes the best medicine isn't knowing what to do, but being brave enough to admit when you need help, when you don't have all the answers, but you show up anyway. He paused, thinking about that storm. Soaked night, about the decision to stop, to help, to open his door to strangers who would become his everything. And maybe that healing isn't about going back to who you were before you got hurt. Maybe it's about learning to be someone new, someone who carries their scars, but doesn't let them define everything. Noah reached them first, his small arms outstretched, his voice ringing clear across the beach. Daddy will come play. The name that had once been a mystery that had stopped William's heart with its impossibility was now as natural as breathing. He scooped the boy up, spun him in circles until they both were dizzy and laughing. And when Callista joined them, her arms wrapping around them all, he felt the last piece of his broken heart finally slot back into place. They built sandcastles as the light faded. The 4 of them working together with the same easy cooperation they brought to everything now. Leia engineered the structural supports. Noah enthusiastically destroyed and rebuilt walls, and Callista and William shaped towers and mows, while their hands occasionally brushed each touch, still carrying that spark of wonder that they had found each other at all. Tell me the story again, Noah demanded, as he often did. About the night I found Daddy Will. Callista met William's eyes over their son's head, a shared look of love and understanding. Well, she began, settling Noah in her lap as the waves whispered against the shore. There was a terrible storm, and Mommy was lost and scared. And then, like magic, the kindest man in the whole world found us. Not magic, William corrected gently. Just luck and maybe a little bit of fate. And I knew he was good, Noah continued, having heard this story enough times to know every beat. So I called him. Daddy. That's right, baby. Callista whispered, pressing a kiss to his hair. You knew before any of us did. You knew we were home. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of purple and pink, and William gathered his family close. Leah leaned against his shoulder. Noah curled in Callista's arms, and the four of them sat, in comfortable silence, listening to the eternal rhythm of the waves. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled, the promise of another storm rolling in from the Pacific. But William felt no fear this time. Let rain. Let it pour. They had each other now, and that was enough to weather anything. The workshop was waiting for them, full of projects and patience and purpose. Tomorrow, Callista had a full schedule of appointments. Children who needed her gentle care and expert attention. Tomorrow, William would teach Noah how to use a level, would help Leah with her science project, would kiss his wife good morning, and mean it with everything he had. But tonight, they were just this, a family made from broken pieces, held together by forgiveness and love, and the pure, blind courage it takes to open your door during a storm and trust that what you invite inside will heal you rather than harm you. I love you, Callista said softly. The words meant for all of them, for this chosen family that had saved her life and given her back her purpose. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for letting us, William replied. And in his voice was everything he had learned about grace and second chances and the way love can grow in the most unexpected places, fierce and true and unbreakable. Thank you for coming home. The storm rolled in gently this time, the rain soft and warm against their faces as they finally gathered their things and headed back to the car. Noah fell asleep on William's shoulder. Leah held Callista's hand, and together they walked through the rain toward home. No longer running from anything. No longer afraid. Just a family. Just love.